Hello everyone and welcome back to Joys That Flies. If you're new here, my name's Cassidy and I deal with the sewing side of this channel. So today's pattern I'm going to be teaching you how to sew elasticated shorts. Now this is the perfect project whether you're a beginner, whether you're more advanced. Everyone can make them, have fun, they're a great wardrobe staple. I'm pretty sure box of shorts actually went like trendy this summer or something, who knows. But this pattern I try to make it as inclusive as possible. I know that some people have different preferences, so I've given you both options. You can either download the free PDF pattern for this tutorial, or I'm going to teach you how to draft them yourself but using a pair of shorts you already own. Want to start learning how to draft your own patterns? I think using a pair of shorts that you already own is a really good idea. The magpie won't shut up and I've not got a mic. You're just going to have to deal with it. So I am going to start off with the people who are going to be drafting the pattern themselves. If this isn't new, there are timestamps in the description below, so you can skip to the part in the video that you need. So you're going to want to grab your shorts and fold them in half so that the front sides are facing outwards, because we're going to be starting off with creating the front pattern. And grab some pattern weights and stuff and place them on your paper, ready to trace them. So all you're going to want to do is trace directly around it. Don't worry if it's a bit messy because we're going to neaten it all up in a moment. Once you've traced all the way around it, you can get rid of your shorts, and now you're just going to want to neaten up any lines. So things like the inseam and the bottom hem, just create a straight line because it might have come out a bit curved, as you can see on mine. The only thing you've got to drastically change to your tracing of your shorts is obviously the top was elasticated, so all the fabric was bunched in. So now we want to make room for the fabric to gather, if that makes sense. We're going to add some extra. So on the crotch here and the outer leg here, you're just going to want to draw a straight line up to create a sort of box shape instead of the curving in. And then once you've done that, you're just going to want to connect them up at the top with a straight line. Now we're going to want to add some seam allowance and room for the channel for the elastic. So up at the top, just extend that top line by however wide your elastic is, plus 1/4 of an inch. And then you're going to want to add seam allowance at the bottom for the hem, so just extend your bottom line by 3/4 of an inch. And then just add 1/4 of an inch seam allowance around the rest of the edges. And then it's always a good idea to name your pattern pieces for future reference. So you're just going to want to write down on this pattern piece what it is, and this is your front pattern piece, and you're going to want to cut 2 of them out of your fabric, and then you can just cut it out. Now we're going to be doing the exact same thing but for your back pattern piece. So you're going to want to fold your shorts with the front sides facing together, and then just repeat the same process for it. So you're going to want to trace around it onto your paper, and then just fix any lines that were slightly curved, like your inseam and the hemline, and then also extend the crotch and the outer seam up to make room for the elastic as before. And then add the same measurement for your elastic up at the top edge like you did on the front piece, and also add a 3/4 of an inch seam allowance at the bottom, and then add 1/4 of an inch seam allowance around all the other edges. And then just write down what this pattern piece is. This is your back pattern piece, and you're going to want to cut 2 of them out of your fabric, and then you can cut the pattern piece out. Now if you're using the downloadable PDF pattern, then here is what you're going to want to do. So down in the description there is a link that will take you directly to our website, which has the downloadable PDF file. So just download and print the pattern out at 100% scale, and on the first page you'll see that there's test squares to check the measurements, and also a diagram for each piece of paper. And now I'm just going to show you the way I assemble my pattern, as I find it a lot faster and a lot simpler. So at each corner you're just going to want to cut the corner off at the page border instead of trying to trim the entire page border. So then when you go to assemble it, you can see that it's a lot easier to see whether the circles in each corner are aligned. And then you can just tape your pattern pieces down and just continue this for every single sheet. and then you can cut the pattern pieces out at your size. And to find your size, there are 2 size charts on the same page where you found the downloadable PDF pattern, and they should help you out. I was editing this video and then I suddenly realised I missed out a really important note for if you're using the PDF pattern. So the pattern calls for a 1.5 inch wide elastic, but if you don't want to, which I understand, maybe you want to use something from your stash, you don't have to buy a specific width of elastic. If you're using a smaller width of elastic, then you're going to want to take that measurement away from 1.5 inches, and then that measurement that you're left with, you're going to want to take off the top of the PDF pattern. So just the top edge on both the back and the front, just take away that measurement and you should be fine. So now we should all be at the same point in our little sewing journey for this pattern. You should have your paper pattern, whether you downloaded it or whether you self-drafted it. And now we can all start doing the same thing and start sewing it all together. So cut out your pattern pieces in your fabric, and you should have 2 for the front and 2 for the back. And then just take one of them and take it to your ironing board. And at the bottom edge, you're going to want to iron 1/4 inch hem, and then refold it again to iron another 1/2 inch hem. And then just repeat that with the rest of your pattern pieces, as this is going to really help us later on. Now at the top of each pattern piece, so where the elastic is going to go, you're going to want to iron 1/4 inch hem, and then iron another hem measuring the width of your elastic. So if you self-drafted the pattern, that's whatever measurement you chose, but if you used the PDF pattern, then that's 1.5 inches. So you're going to want to take one of your front pieces and one of your back pieces and place them right sides together, and then pin along the outer leg seam. So you are going to want to unfold those hems that we just made and then just pin them together, and then do the same for the inseam. And then just sew down the outer leg seam and the inner leg seam. And remember, every seam sewn in this pattern is with 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then just repeat that with your remaining front and back piece. And then just turn one of the sides right sides out and place it inside the other side. So you're going to want to have both of the legs facing right sides together. Then you're going to want to just pin around the crotch, so that's the kind of U shape. And then sew all of the way around the crotch. And then you can turn your shorts right sides out. And then refold the hems that we ironed at the very beginning, and now you can see that it makes it a lot easier that we already ironed them instead of trying to iron a loop. And then once you've pinned all the way around, you can just sew them closed. And then just repeat the same thing with your waistband hem. So just refold it and then pin it in place, and you're going to want to sew all of the way around it. But in your sewing, leave about a 2-inch gap so that we can thread the elastic through later. And now grab your elastic, and with the help of a safety pin, thread it through the waistband of your shorts using that gap we left in the sewing. And then once the elastic's all the way around, just place both of the ends on top of each other and sew a few times over them to secure them together. And then just to finish your shorts, you're just going to want to sew that gap in your waistband closed. And that's it, you're all done. I hope you had fun sewing this project, but if you have any questions about anything, please feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer you. Hitting the like and subscribe button would also really help.